Namaste. I am very happy to be part of this National Youth Day celebrations being organized by the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Bhava Prachara Parishad in Kerala. Swami Vivekananda used to say that any Indian who brings the glory of India's past to the doorstep of every Indian is the greatest benefactor of India. On the same lines, we can say today that any Indian who brings the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda to the doorstep of all Indians is the greatest benefactor of India. So, in that way, the work that the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Bhava Prachara Parishad is doing by organizing this National Youth Day celebration, by reaching out to the youth and by spreading the life and message of Swami Vivekananda is something to be appreciated, and I am grateful and I am happy to be part of this National Youth Day celebration. I usually say that the test of any idea, of any personality, of any institution, the best possible test of any idea or institution or personality is what I call the time test. Time is called Mahakala in Sanskrit. He is considered as the great destroyer, and many empires have come and gone. They have not withstood the test of time. Swami Vivekananda himself would say in his very beautiful words, where the Caesar ruled once, the spider weaves its web. That is referring to the Roman Empire and its collapse. That even great empires have come and gone, and they go into they are reduced to dust in the sands of time. So therefore, if any idea or if any institution or if any personality can withstand this test of time, if somebody's relevance, if somebody's popularity, or if the value of his life and teachings remains undiminished over a period of time, it simply means that there has to be some value, some strength in it. So it is almost 157 years since Swami Vivekananda came, in human form, and in spite of so many years having passed, that his life and message continues to inspire millions of people across the globe. It simply shows, that the power of truth and dharma that there was in his life and in his teaching. And I will not be surprised, I will not be, exaggerating if I say that perhaps for another 1500 years and more, Swami Vivekananda's life and teachings will continue to inspire millions of people across the globe. We have another such example of a great saint, Adi Shankara in India. Even if you take his date of birth from a conventional point of view as 8th century AD, it has been more than 1200 years since his coming. And you find that to this day, the institutions that he established, the forms of worship that he created, and the texts on which he wrote commentaries continue to inspire and continue to be studied across the length and breadth of the land. So when I read Swami Vivekananda's life and teachings, this is the same kind of feeling that I get, that you are delving deep into the very soul of India, and it has such power and such relevance for eternity because he deals with questions, existential questions which are eternal and universal in nature, and therefore those answers will remain relevant till the end of time, till humanity is what it is. I'm also reminded, of this very beautiful quote of Roma Rolla, which many of you would have heard about, where talking about the power of Swami Vivekananda's writings, he says, his words are great music, phrases in the style of Beethoven, stirring rhythms like the march of Handel choruses. I cannot touch these sayings of his, scattered as they are through the pages of books at 30 years' distance, without receiving a thrill through my body like an electric shock. And what shocks, what transports must have been produced when in burning words they issued from the lips of the hero. So this he said, 30 years after Swami's passing. And as I said, we are almost 157 years after Swami Vivekananda. And the same feeling many people experience when they read the electric words of Swami Vivekananda even today. In fact, I have noticed this phenomenon with Swami Vivekananda's life and his teachings, that even a chance encounter with his life or his teachings is enough to transform a person and to change, completely a person's attitudes towards life and death, to, completely change the direction of a person's life. And in fact, this is true about me also. It has been my personal experience also. When I was an undergraduate student studying at IIT Madras, how I came into contact with Swami Vivekananda's life and teachings was an accident. There was a Marathi Mandal at the IIT campus there, and they used to organize, the Ganesh Utsav every year. And they used to conduct some competitions for the students as part of the Ganesh Utsav. And I happened to participate in a essay writing and elocution competition. And a small booklet of Swami Vivekananda was given as a compliment to all the participants. I think it is published even to this day, and this booklet is very popular because it continues to inspire many people. It is usually the first book that many people encounter in their introduction to Swami Vivekananda. It is called Vivekananda: His Call to the Nation. So this was my introduction to Swami Vivekananda literature, and as I said, that chance encounter completely changed me as a person. I used to be a very shy introvert in those days, and if I am able to confidently talk like this, even communicate some ideas, if I've entered into the profession of teaching, and if I'm teaching a course on Indian culture and heritage to the students of Amrita University today, that transformation has become possible because of this chance encounter that I had with the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda. This is the power that Swami Vivekananda's life and teachings can have on you. And as I said, there are any number of examples you can take from history, from the lives of great personalities, to illustrate this power that Swami Vivekananda has in transforming people's lives. In fact, Swami Vivekananda himself, speaking about his Guru Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, would say that the greatest miracle in life is transformation of human consciousness and character. And he would say Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was such a great guru because of this power, that by a few words, by his mere presence, or by a mere touch, he could change the character or the consciousness of a person. Looking behind, I think we can say the same thing about Swami Vivekananda also, that after so many years having been passed, the way he is changing and transforming people, it simply shows that he's working a miracle on millions of people to this day, by the power of his words and the power of his teachings, which he has bequeathed to us in the form of those complete works of Swami Vivekananda. Another example that comes to my mind is that of this great freedom fighter called Balagangadhar Tilak, who was the pioneer of the Indian nationalist movement. And I do not know how many of you are aware that it was a chance encounter that brought him into contact with Swami Vivekananda. They say that those days Swami Vivekananda used to travel under an identity of Swami Sachidananda. He would change his name sometimes while traveling to disguise his identity. So he was traveling through Maharashtra, it seems, under the name of Swami Sachidananda. And on this train, Tilak was also traveling, happened to be traveling. And Swamiji's disciples, some of the disciples who knew him, introduced Tilak to Swami Vivekananda, saying, "Here is a great monk of great saintliness and great intellectual ability." And this is how Tilak comes into accidental contact with Swami Vivekananda, and he invites Swami Vivekananda to his house in Pune. And Swami Vivekananda spends about 15 days staying with Balagangadhar Tilak. And they say Balagangadhar Tilak is so impressed, so inspired by the character, by the personality, and by the teachings of Swami Vivekananda, that he's later on they part, and Swami Vivekananda goes to the Parliament of Religions, and Tilak reads about this monk who has created ripples across the world by introducing the teachings of Hinduism and Indian culture to the Americans and to the world through the World Parliament of Religions. So they say Tilak writes a letter later on. Of course, after the Parliament of Religions, Swamiji was became famous, known as Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda. And Tilak writes a letter to him saying, "Are you the same monk that I met on the train? Are you the same person that who came and stayed with me in Pune?" And Vivekananda replies to him saying, "Yes, I am the same person." And they say this correspondence between Tilak and Swamiji, in fact, he guides Balagangadhar Tilak or inspires him to write a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita from a nationalist perspective. And this is that epic treatise as we know it called the Gita Rahasya, right? So this is a glimpse of Swami Vivekananda's impact on the freedom movement in India, right? Whether it was Subhash Chandra Bose, whether it was Balagangadhar Tilak, whether it was Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, or scores of other freedom fighters who came into touch with the teachings of Swami Vivekananda and inspired by him, fought against the British for India's freedom. And perhaps many of you are not aware that there are secret intelligence reports left behind by the CID of British intelligence those days, that they would consider the possession of any literature of Swami Vivekananda's lectures as incriminating evidence. They would arrest the person as a revolutionary, as a freedom fighter, if any of those fiery talks of Swami Vivekananda were found in his possession. Because most of the freedom fighters those days would use Swamiji's exhortations as teaching material, instruction material for the grooming the nationalist intellectuals and the freedom fighters in those days. You will also be surprised to know that the password which these revolutionaries used to use for their secret meetings, which used to be held across different locations, secret locations in India, was the name of Swamiji himself. That is, Vivekananda would be used as a password for these meetings. This is what we has been revealed to us through some of these secret intelligence meeting reports that the British have left behind. So this is the kind of impact that Swamiji had on the freedom movement in India. And this is something that has to be taught as part of our history, as part of our textbooks to our young people. The kind of impact that Swamiji made in the shaping of modern India. Another modern example, if I can give you, is that of a man who used to go by the name of Kishan Baburao Hazare. Today, of course, he is called as Anna Hazare. He is popularly known as Anna Hazare. You can search through YouTube for some interviews of Anna Hazare where he speaks about his early life, and you'll be amazed to find again about his chance encounter with this very book called Vivekananda, His Call to the Nation, and how it inspired him or changed him from what he was to what he became. They say that Anna Hazare in his early life was a soldier in the Indian Army, and in an India-Pakistan war in which he had taken part, his regiment came under heavy fire, artillery fire from the Pakistani side, and all his friends who were traveling in that truck with him, perished. They died of, taking the enemy's bullets. And a bullet hits him also, Anna Hazare, on his forehead and bounces off. So he's in hospital for many days. When he wakes up, he discovers that all his friends are dead and gone, that only he is alive. So this existential question comes to him as to why he is alive and while all his friends are dead. So whether life and death are merely a chance of luck. So this is what we call the survivor's guilt. So when you survive and very people very close to you die in an accident or in a tragic incident, you develop what is called survivor's guilt, and this is what Anna Hazare also went through. He had this survivor's guilt and he went into a depression, and in fact they say that he became suicidal. And while he was in Delhi, he decided one day to end his life, and he went to the Delhi railway station to kill himself by lying on the railway tracks. And it seems, luckily, fortunately, the train was delayed, and his eye fell on a bookstall that was on the platform, and on a small booklet of Swami Vivekananda's. He started reading it, and he says his life changed completely. The depression went away. The answers that he was looking for, that he was searching for, he found in Swami Vivekananda's teachings. And they say that day when he came back to his room, there was a telegram waiting for him that his sister's marriage had been fixed. And if he had committed suicide, you see, his sister's marriage would have, it would have spoiled his sister's life also. And therefore, Anna Hazare says in many interviews that it was Swami Vivekananda's life and teachings that changed him, transformed him, and inspired him to become what he became. Later on, he went back to his birth village, his native place in Maharashtra called Ralegaon Siddhi, from where he, started this anti-corruption movement. He wanted to serve the poor and the common people in India, inspired by this famous teaching of Swami Vivekananda, where in a letter to the Maharaja of Mysore, I think if I remember correctly, Swami Vivekananda writes saying that life is short, my dear prince. Life is short. The vanities of this world are transient. They alone live who live for others. The rest are more dead than alive. So it was this line, powerful line of Swami Vivekananda, that transformed Kishan Baburao Hazare into Anna Hazare. The third personality that I am very fond of, that I've been personally inspired by, is none other than Sister Nivedita, Margaret Noble, disciple of Swami Vivekananda himself. And she has left behind one of the most beautiful biographies of Swami Vivekananda that is available to us, the memoirs of Vivekananda that is available to us, called The Master as I Saw Him. So as we celebrate this National Youth Day, I would appeal to all of you, I would request to all of you that this is one of the books that I would like you to read, The Master as I Saw Him by Sister Nivedita. So how Sister Nivedita came into contact with Swami Vivekananda is again a story in itself. That Swami Vivekananda was teaching Vedanta in London, and the school where she was working, I think it was called the Ruskin School, and one of the teachers of that school was going to attend that talk of Swami Vivekananda that afternoon in London. And she had been reading a lot of Eastern philosophical literature, and she was interested in attending this talk of Swami Vivekananda, and she went along with the other teacher, the other staff of that school, to listen to Swami Vivekananda. And this, you see, this chance meeting, so to say, completely changed her life, and she went on to become, one of the foremost disciples of Swami Vivekananda, and one of the also one of the greatest nationalist leaders also of the freedom struggle in India. Right, the way she collaborates with Subramania Bharati and inspires, in fact, many nationalist leaders to fight for India's freedom struggle, inspired her by her own personal experience in the Irish revolutionary movement. What Sister Nivedita has left behind and what she has contributed to India is enormous. And all this came about because of that chance meeting with Swami Vivekananda. And in her letters, she writes, she says, suppose Swami Vivekananda had not come to London that time, life would have been a headless dream. This is the very words of Sister Nivedita, in which she describes that had she not met Swami Vivekananda, her life would have been a headless dream. So in this way, you find that many popular celebrities, from cricket personalities to technocrats to social scientists to spiritual leaders, the list of people whose lives have been transformed by this touch of Vivekananda are endless. So you can say that Swami Vivekananda is like a Midas touch. Anybody who comes into contact with him is transformed into pure gold, spiritual gold. He evolves as a human being, as a personality. So all of us should make it a point to read the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda, delve deep into this ocean of wisdom, of beauty, something that elevates the soul, and changes you, completes you as a human being, right? Makes you find your purpose in life like nothing else can do, right? So these were some instances that I wanted to share with you. Another thought, a very important thought that we should dwell on today, is because we are celebrating the National Youth Day, is to ask ourselves as to why, you see, the government of India thought it fit to make Swami Vivekananda's birthday to 12th of January as the National Youth Day. Given the fact that there are many such, perhaps, youth icons, young personalities who could have been, whose birthday would have been considered as a National Youth Day. Given the fact that Swami Vivekananda, was a monk, was a sannyasi, was a spiritual leader, the very fact that his birthday is being celebrated as National Youth Day, it is something for us to think, contemplate deeply upon. Okay, and perhaps no better example you will find is because the way Swami Vivekananda impacted, different, diverse aspects of Indian national life. It was not just merely spirituality that he touched upon. As I said, wherever he would throw his gaze upon, wherever he would direct his thought upon, he enriched that domain or personalities in that domain, and made them better than what they were. I'm again reminded of, because we are talking about this, another personality that I forgot mentioning was this chance encounter between Swami Vivekananda and G.R.D. Tata. Uh, you know, if you read, in fact, the souvenir published by the Indian Institute of Science when they celebrated their 150th centenary celebrations, you will find that in the introduction to this souvenir, this meeting between Swami Vivekananda and Tata is mentioned, and how it went on to inspire this pioneer to establish, in fact, the very founding of the Indian Institute of Science was inspired by Swami Vivekananda. So they say, I think it was on his second voyage to the West that Tata was also traveling on the same ship, and he comes into contact with Swami Vivekananda. And when Vivekananda asks him, "What are you going to do in America?" he tells him that he is going to study the ins and outs of the steel industry, that he wants to set up a steel manufacturing plant in India. And Swami Vivekananda encourages him, and he also tells him that I also want you to set up an institute for higher scientific research in India. That Swamiji tells him that I had traveled to Japan, and I find that Japan is making tremendous advances in science and technology today because it is investing so much in higher scientific research. Later on, they say when Tata comes back to India, this idea remains with him, and inspired by Swamiji, he starts this higher institute of scientific research. It was initially called the Tata Institute of Scientific Research. Later on, it became the Indian Institute of Science. Not only that, in fact, after founding it, he writes a letter to Swamiji saying that you are the one who inspired me to start this institute, and therefore it would be befitting if you would become the chancellor of this institute. And of course, Swamiji politely declines, saying that I am a monk, that I have a different mission and a different work to do. But he encourages him to set up this higher institute of scientific research. So this is an example, as I said, of how Swami Vivekananda has impacted diverse fields of life in India, and therefore it is befitting that it is his birthday that we are celebrating as National Youth Day. So for the youth of India, what appeals in Swami Vivekananda's personality? During my student days, what appealed to me in Swami Vivekananda's life was, the very first quality that would stand out when anybody would read his life is, the tremendous courage and fearlessness that his personality, reflects. In fact, when one of Swamiji's disciples asked him, "What do you meditate upon?" He gave that famous reply that I meditate on the heart of a lion. So that is what he was. He was a lion amongst men. He was a hero amongst men, and this is what appeals, in fact, to the youth: this absolute fearlessness and courage, tremendous, fiery courage that you find in the personality of Swami Vivekananda. The kind of teachings that he brings are so revolutionary, so bold. That famous statement where that incident where a group of emaciated young men come to him and say that we want to learn the Bhagavad Gita, and Swamiji famously replies to them saying that you will be nearer to heaven by playing football than by reading the Gita, telling them that physical fitness and mental fitness are prerequisites to gaining self-knowledge. That self-knowledge requires tremendous amount of strength, and that people who are physically or mentally or emotionally weak cannot attain self-knowledge. And this is the kind of revolutionary kind of teachings that Swami Vivekananda is known for. This is what appeals to the youth. His bold way in which he would present spirituality and religion, which appeals to the modern rational mind. He would, in his commentary on Raja Yoga, for example, he says that religion should be, tested by science, and that we have nothing to be afraid of any scientific inquiry, and that we should be confident that the more science inquires into the sources of our religion and the practices of religion, the more it will go on to validate these very practices. And he says if religion cannot withstand the test of science, then it should be thrown out of the window. To that extent, he makes that bold statement that religion should be rational, should be logical. It should not be merely, superstitious, faith-based kind of uh, dogmas or beliefs that we find, in fact, in some of these religions which have been imported into India. So this is what appeals again, I would say, in Swami Vivekananda's personality today to the youth. The other thing that I found very inspiring in Swami Vivekananda's personality is his burning patriotism, the way he would identify with India, the way he would identify with Indians, with the problems of Indians, the way he would, empathize with the poor of India. Even when he was in America and he was given royal treatment, he writes in his letters to Alasinga Perumal and other disciples when he would write from the West that he would sleep on the floor and avoid using the bed because he knew that millions of his countrymen were suffering in poverty under British rule and that this would pain him. This was the kind of man that he was. His integrity and his patriotism, was exemplary, extraordinary. Rarely do you come across a saint who had this kind of a blend of nationalism, patriotism, and spirituality in him, like Vivekananda did. His meditation at Kanyakumari, for example, he swam in the ocean, reaches that point with great difficulty. Even what they say professional swimmers would find it difficult to swim in such volatile currents in the Indian Ocean. There, he was physically fit enough to do that, and for 3 days, he meditates there on that famous rock, the Vivekananda Rock, as it is called today, where he has this vision of the future of India and he's drawn thereafter to go to the World Parliament of Religions to impress upon the foreigners about the value of India's spiritual heritage. And by doing so, he wanted to awaken Indians to their own heritage. Right. So this patriotism is something that appeals to me. The way he catches that British man by the collar on the ship and threatens to throw him overboard and says, if you say one more word against my mother India, then I'll throw you into the sea. Right. So he would accept criticism against himself, but he would not be willing to accept criticism against his own motherland. That was the kind of man that he was. When he landed, after his world tours on the shores of Colombo or in Ramanad, or in Kanyakumari, the way he would take the soil of India and pour it over his head and say that I have traveled across the length and breadth of the world, but having traveled everywhere, the soil of India has become holier to me now. India was holy to me, but now it has become the holiest. So that was the kind of attitude that he had to his own motherland and to its soil, to its culture. And I would like to end this talk with a very beautiful passage from this master as I saw him of Sister Nivedita, where Sister Nivedita was traveling with a band of disciples with Swami Vivekananda, and when they enter into Punjab, as they were traveling, Vivekananda would regale them, inspire them with stories, of history, of great Rajput heroes, for example, of great kings, of great gurus who had been born in those places. And one thing that Sister Nivedita notices is the way he would identify with that particular region. If he was in Rajasthan, he would dress up like a Rajasthani, like a Rajput. He would eat the Rajasthani food. He would talk like a Rajasthani, and he would become one with the Rajasthanis. And similarly, if he would go into Punjab, he would become one with the Punjabis and live with them. This kind of merging with that regional identity that he was able to do is something very beautiful, I find. And nobody else can express it more beautifully than the way Sister Nivedita does in the Master as I saw him in this passage when she says, it was as we passed into the Punjab, however, that we caught our deepest glimpse of the Master's love of his own land. She would refer to Swamiji as Master. Anyone who had seen him here would have supposed him to have been born in the province, so intensely had he identified himself with it. It would seem that he had been deeply bound to the people there by many ties of love and reverence, had received much and given much, for there were some amongst them who urged that they found in him a rare mixture of Guru Nanak and Guru Govind, their first teacher and their last. So they, the people of Punjab adored Swami Vivekananda in this way because he was, because of the way he was able to mingle with them and identify himself with the people of Punjab. Again, a very beautiful passage comes to my mind, which again reflects Swamiji's fiery patriotism. Is this reply to the address at Ramnath, as it is called in lectures from Colombo to Almora? This is the other book that I would request all of you to read, especially if you are young people and you are new to Swami Vivekananda literature. These are two books that I would recommend to you: The Master as I Saw Him and Lectures from Colombo to Almora. So, this passage is one of my most favorite passages from Swami Vivekananda's teachings or literature. And whenever I read this passage, my hair stands on end. I get goosebumps just by the sheer beauty, of the language that Swamiji uses when he describes India. It shows the depth of his soul and to the extent to which he had merged into the spirit of India. Right. So this is one of those very very beautiful passages from Swamiji. He says, "The longest night seems to be passing away. The sorest trouble seems to be coming to an end at last. The seeming corpse appears to be awaking, and a voice is coming to us, away back where history and even tradition fails to peep into the gloom of the past, coming down from there, reflected as it were, from peak to peak of the infinite Himalaya of knowledge and of love and of work. India, this motherland of ours, a voice is coming unto us, gentle, firm, and yet unmistakable in its utterances, and is gaining volume as days pass by. And behold, the sleeper is awakening. Like a breeze from the Himalayas, it is bringing life into the almost dead bones and muscles. The lethargy is passing away, and only the blind cannot see, or the perverted will not see, that she is awakening, this motherland of ours, from her deep, long sleep. None can desist her anymore. Never is she going to sleep anymore. No outward powers can hold her back anymore, for the infinite giant is rising to her feet. And this is what we see happening today, right in front of our eyes. Swamiji's words are coming true, that India is rising as a giant in this difficult pandemic situation that we are in. The whole world is looking to India for leadership, and India is today led by a prime minister who is again inspired by the life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda himself. So I hope that in the days to come, that all Indians will be inspired by this great chant of Swami Vivekananda's teachings, the music of Swami Vivekananda's teachings, and that we will go on to become the Jagat Guru, achieve our true potential, and this light of India's spiritual heritage will shine upon the world through the teachings and life of Swami Vivekananda. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of my personal experiences as well as some thoughts on this National Youth Day. Namaste.